So first, we should get into what you do because you have a very interesting theory. Tell everybody what your background is first of all.
Yeah, all right, that does seem like a good place to start. My background is in anthropology, biological anthropology. My research mostly focuses on evolutionary anatomy, biomedicine. I've done some archaeology in various places around the world in Montana. But the reason I'm here, I assume, because according to my friend Matt, we were butchering a mule deer, I think I shot. And I was like, yeah, I gotta go to this conference. And I was like, do you want to know what it's about? He's like, nobody gives a shit about what you do other than UFOs, man. I was like, damn it, he's right. Like, I did actually used to do a lot of what I thought was cool stuff. But no, the main thing is that I've become known for advocating for this idea that UFOs and the aliens are actually our time-traveling future human descendants. I wouldn't even say as opposed to extraterrestrials, because I do think that's a component too. I oftentimes get pigeonholed. People are like, oh, you just think they're all time travelers. I don't. I actually say this all the time, but it doesn't matter. I do think there's a lot going on. But my background and the reason I approach this question this way is because there's a lot of characteristics of these aliens that look so hominin. They look just like us, and specifically what we'd expect to see in our hominin future if the same evolutionary trends continue into the future. So I kind of just tie those things together, and even the saucer-shaped craft seemingly are time machines themselves. So that's.
You guys ever believe in aliens? Like, oh, I got this fan on. I can hear that shit in the back. Damn, I didn't even think about that fan. This shit up here.
Kind of the Cliff Notes version.
Well, it's a theory that a lot of people have independently sort of come to, right?
Yeah, especially recently.
And the concept of, well, just if you just think about ancient man. I was watching this documentary on Neanderthals last night about this one intact Neanderthal skeleton that they found that was, it had sort of been, he had died in a cave, and you know there's stalagmites, is stalactites or mites? How do you say it?
Tights are up, mites are down.
So he was essentially mineralized.
Mm-hmm.
There was stuff all over the body, and it took a long time for them to break this body.
I think I saw that. Was that on Netflix?
No, I was watching it on YouTube. Maybe originally it was on
okay.
Netflix, but it was just documenting how strange this body was that they had found. But it was immensely strong, like much stronger than us. One of the interesting things was that their visual cortex, the part of the brain that would process imagery, was larger than ours, 10 to 20% larger.
Yeah.
And that so these things probably had better eyesight than us, perhaps even were able to see at night, and that this was a bigger, stronger version of a human being, like much more durable than what we are, modern 2025 Homo sapiens.
Yep.
If you just look, yeah, that's it. So that's one of them.
Cool.
Neither human nor Neanderthal.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock bigger screens and better controls. All for the crown.
Oh, really?
This is published.
Is this the same? This might not be the same one. This is maybe a different one. That's a weird one because what's that fucking thing on its head?
That's what it says. It's a stalactite growing out of it or
I
something.
gotta use
Wow, in a weird form. Weird.
Yeah, it's like a
Like-
unicorn.
I gotta
Yeah,
use
like a
it.
crest.
Look at that.
They do have a sagittal ridge.
Yes.
Homo erectus had one. There's an offshoot in our hominin lineage called Paranthropus, or robust Australopithecines, and they had a full-on like gorilla style sagittal ridge. Yeah, because they were vegetarians, so they just chewed all day.
Right. So they had massive muscles to chew.
Yeah, their whole face is huge.
Wow.
Neanderthals, kind of, I mean, they were just big. It's
Yeah.
just a robusticity thing, but there is evidence from Shanidar Cave in Iraq where they were using their teeth as tools. We think they were like tanning hides. They were holding the hide in their mouth and then like scraping all the nasty bits. And you can see that in the tooth wear. So yeah, they were pretty badass. They were the first, I don't know, I think this is cool, but people think I'm a nerd too. They were the first to use the flake. Like for 2.8 million years, we just hit a piece of rock and like, oh, this is a cool tool. But then they figured out that if you hit the rock in just the right way, the piece that falls off makes an even better tool. It took us like 2.5.
Like
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
You make an arrowhead.
And from that point on, like I got to work at a place called Chirpbol, Jonzac in southern France. for a summer, and it was a Neanderthal site. And we found these. Actually, it's pretty funny because when we first got there, these tools called MTA hand axes, Musteri, and it was Schulian tradition hand axes. And there were only 8 found in all of Europe. And they said, if you guys find one of these, we'll buy you all the beer and all the cognac you can drink. So we're in the cognac region of France. And we found one like the 4th or 5th day. We went on to find 7 more over the course of that week. We doubled the number of these things in existence in all of Europe. And they were not lying. They bought us so many damn beers. Like, archaeologists like to drink. You know, we dig and it's boring as hell. You know, it's not Indiana Jones. We're not running around banging hot chicks and flying on planes. We're like, we got a spoon and we're doing this for 8 hours. So, yeah, I actually found the last one on the last day, and it was by far the worst one. Like, I had to argue that it should even count as one of these. But yeah, no, it was a cool site. So yeah, they were doing well, but we were doing better. We came in and replaced them.
Well, something happened where we replaced them.
Yeah.
But the point is, as time goes on, humans today are probably the most feeble version of humans that have ever existed.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And we're the most feeble versions of people that have existed within the last century, right? Like, if you go back to humans from the 1920s versus humans from the 2020s, people have way less testosterone now, way higher instances of miscarriages, way lower sperm count. You know, there's a lot of factors that are at play right now that are changing what a human is. And if you extrapolate, if you look at the future, you would naturally say, well, we're probably going to be very thin. It seems like there's at least some sort of a push to eliminate gender. Like, gender seems like it's on the table as whether or not it's even necessary. There's all sorts of new technological innovations that are leading to the possibility, at least sometime in the future, of an artificial womb. There's genetic engineering with CRISPR and a lot of other different technologies that are being explored that we might be able to engineer human beings and then even create a complete individual human being without a mother, without a father. So if you thought about what that looks like in the future, like, one of our problems on this planet is we all have different ideologies, different religions, come from different parts of the world. We look different. And human beings, as tribal primates, have a tendency to other. We other different tribes. Those are not us. We are us. Those are the enemy. We go out.
You rally around it.
But if everybody's exactly the same and we share one mind, you know, then a lot of our problems go away. Yeah. If we no longer have to compete for resources, we no longer have the desire to procreate and to acquire land and to be, you know, to have a territory, we eliminate a lot of our issues. And that's what these things look like. When you look at the archetypal, these iconic sort of shapes that have been on cave walls all the way up to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, one thing they share is that they have no muscle, they have large heads, they have big eyes.
And they're childlike. They're very paedomorphic, as we say. Yeah, you just tied together like a lot of really important points related to this theory. Aspects of why they're always interested in our gametes, why they come back and put that little machine on a man to collect semen, why they're constantly taking eggs from females and implanting fetuses, pulling them back out later. Like, they're clearly focused on reproduction, gamete extraction, and one of the things that might be fueling that in the future, if these are future humans, let's just assume for a second hypothetically, is that they might be having problems directly resulting from these trends toward self-domestication, these trends toward feminization, these trends toward reduced sperm counts, which is 60% across most populations of the world, in the industrialized world, 50% across the entire world. Yeah, problems with reproduction, in vitro fertilization, exogenesis chambers might help.
This game, you're not ready for it.
You're in the middle of this beautiful sci-fi environment.
Solve some of those problems, growing the fetus outside of the body. So yeah, and like you said, you know, what do they look like? They look like kind of a hybrid between males and females to some extent, but there's still an essence of gender. Like if
That's
you
crazy.
talk to Whitley Strieber, you know, he's with this being. He says in Communion that I had a sense that she was a woman. I don't know why, but I kind of sensed that. So it's almost like the essence of the individual, the soul of the individual still retains that sort of gender identity, even though our bodies are becoming more childlike, more gender indiscriminate. I don't know. But yeah, yet another one of those ways in which we might sort of grow together as a species.
Now, when you say they are extracting sperm, like, how many of these stories do you take seriously? There's a lot of these stories.
That's a great question, yeah.
You know, there's unfortunately for any sort of spectacular public thing that's in the zeitgeist, like alien abduction, whether it's Whitley Strieber from Communion or the John Mack books, the guy from Harvard that wrote, what was it, Abduction?
Passport to the Cosmos and Abduction, yeah.
Yeah.
2 great books.
Great books, but these are all books about encounters, close encounters of the third kind with some sort of a being from another place. Whatever it is, it's just not a human being, and it seems to be technologically at least superior to us. And it seems to be one thing they all seem to share is they seem to be able to communicate telekinetically or telepathically.
Yeah, and I mean, they aren't human, but they're very human too. So for instance, like that's one of the main reasons I started exploring this. I was actually kind of put into this when I was 8 or 9 years old, sort of activated in a way and put on this path by a weird thing that happened to me when I was a kid.
What happened to you?
Well, so I talk about it in my first 2 books, Identified Flying Objects and the Extratempestrial Model, where
That was trash.
I learned about a close
That was
encounter
so
that my
trash.
dad had. He was a veterinarian in Northeast Ohio where I grew up. And he was out one night on a call with another guy, so there's 2 people. As far as J. Allen Hynek's reliability scale, has more reliability because there's multiple witnesses. It's also strange on his scale because they crested the hill, there's a bright light. This is an Amish country. There's no lights in Amish country. And all of a sudden, this bright light darts toward them, hovers just above their truck, darts back to where it was, and straight up into space, like at incredible speed. So this happened before I was born, but I overheard him telling this story to some friends one night. He got Whitley Strieber's book Communion, as most people did in the 1980s, and as they should, because it's a great book. And I walked into the living room. The book is sitting on the shelf facing out. And I remember, like it was yesterday, I sort of stopped, and there was like this light, like a white light. And then I saw this image in my mind of like an early hominin chimpanzee-like creature, a modern human, and then that archetypal gray alien from the cover with this information. What if they're related? What if they are us from the future? And obviously, I mean, that's why I became a biological anthropologist. People are always like,
So you saw this?
Yeah, it was like a flash, like a light. And, it's weird looking back on it because I know a lot more about these experiences. I've talked to people that have had these types of experiences.
What was the setting?
It was our living room. So it was like you come in the front door and just to the left there's this living room, built-in bookshelf, Whitley's books right there. I just turned the corner, saw it, and then like just kind of it just came. Like I didn't know shit about evolutionary biology.
When
I
you
didn't
say
know
you
about
saw it,
UFOs.
like you saw it how?
In my mind, just this white light.
Just an image.
And that image of the 3 faces, and then the question, could they be us from the future? And a lot of people are like, how'd you get into UFOs? Like, you're a biological anthropologist. It's the opposite. I got into biological anthropology to research this question of whether they could be us from the future.
You could be vaping formaldehyde, which is used in taxidermy.
Oh dear.
What?
Formaldehyde. Oh dear.
What?
I knew it. Oh dear. Oh dear.
What?
Aren't you an elk?
So this you felt like at that moment it wasn't just like a weird thought or a dream. It felt like a message. Like, what did it feel like?
Yeah. It was a tasking. You know, I think Rupert Sheldrake said it that people don't have ideas have people. I think that was like hey, go do this thing, and I did. That's why we're here now, talking about it. And obviously, you know, you
Wow.
got to be careful about like selection bias and confirmation bias. Like I didn't go into this. I didn't go into grad school. I also didn't tell anybody in grad school I was there because they would have kicked me out. But I went into it with an open mind. But I was there to study these things because of that event when I was 8 years old.
Wow. Yeah, it is a problem. The confirmation bias. It is a problem with wanting it to be real, and I struggle with that because I desperately want it to be real. And so every time I talk to someone, I've talked to a bunch of people that are, air quote whistleblowers, and some of them I think for sure have been sent in here to distribute disinformation.
Yeah, no doubt.
For sure, because it's a great place to do it.
Yeah.
I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
I'll entertain almost anything.
Which is great. We need that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously there's people that are going to take advantage of it.
But I think it's also important for me to say I'm not convinced. I don't know how much of this is horseshit, but it's not zero.
It's crazy. Have you seen that new movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No, but I keep hearing amazing things about it.
Yeah, we just saw it this past
Did you go to the movie theater?
weekend. Yeah.
Look at you, like a regular person. going
Yeah,
to the
I
movie
like
theater.
it. Yeah.
How was it? Tell me what
It's
it's a multiverse kind of movie.
it's
right?
like that. She ends up figuring out how to switch into her different lives and like take different lives that she's lived throughout all of time.
Wait, what the
And
fuck?
fast forward and rewind and use these things to her advantage and try to accomplish things. It's crazy.
Oh, I love time travel.
Yeah, it's wild.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. That was the theory that Terrence McKenna had to the thing that's going to change the universe, is that one day someone's going to invent a time machine, and that when they invent a time machine, all time ceases to become linear. So you think if you have a time machine, well, I'll just go back to the time where they were making the pyramids and I'll watch them do it. That's not what it works like. What he was saying, you can't travel where there are no roads. So once a road gets built, then you can travel. So once a time machine gets invented, then anyone from the invention of the time machine forward to forever can come back to that moment and can go to any point in time from that moment to the end of time. So all time ceases to be linear. So there's no like tomorrow will be Wednesday and the next day will be Thursday. No. It's everything happens everywhere all at once. So people can travel back and forth through time. You can never own anything because someone could just travel through time and take it away from you when you weren't looking. Like as time travel gets more and more sophisticated, you can go back and forth in time while you're talking to people. If you don't like what you said, you could rewind and start all over again. If you're in an argument with your wife, you can go to the library and get information and come back and go, actually, Herodotus once said, and then bam, your wife thinks you're the smartest guy in the world. Like this, but there would be no normal life anymore. It would the world itself would be completely unrecognizable because time would mean nothing. You'd be able to travel back and forth through time.
All right, so then, where would you go right now? Just if I could do, we can time travel right now. Go back in
the past.
In the past.
Well,
what's one thing you'd like to see again?
See, that would be a different kind of time travel. That's an unrealistic theatrical version of time travel because, like you said, once time is invented, once time travel is invented, that's the time you can start traveling. So you can't
go before that.
Right.
Okay.
So like here we are. It's May of 2022. If time travel is invented in June, we're not going back to April. You can't go back to April.
Okay.
But you can go from June to a million years in the future and see what people look like. You'll be able to do that. But they'll be able to come back too, and everything's going to be happening everywhere all at once. There's not going to be any sort of structure to life. There's not going to be anything in terms of money, possessions. As long as you could freely time travel, there will be no time. Everything's going to be moving around, and also instantaneously you'll become immortal. Because whatever we have right now in terms of technology, what we're going to have in a million years is going to be godlike. And you're going to be able to travel to that if, in fact, that actually does even take place. Because the question becomes, what is the future if time travel does exist? So if time travel exists in June of 2022, is there even a future? Does it even take place? Because how can anybody invent things when they can just travel to a point where someone invented it already? But how are they going to invent it already if you can just travel to the future? And do they invent things still? Or do people, if they do invent things, what's to stop people from going back before them and taking the idea and introducing it before that? Thus, there'll be no intellectual property because there'll be no way to say you came up with it first. It won't exist.
Carlos Mencia will be the greatest comedian in the world. Just smashing.
Wow.
Think about that.
Is there someone working on time machines right now?
Connecticut, if you Google this. And he's got the craziest Spider-Man character origin story. His father died, and he became obsessed with time travel because he wanted to go back in time and save his father. So he became a professor studying time travel, and he came up with a workable model of a time machine, but it requires immense power. That's him.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock rewards with Google Play points. So the more you play, the more you earn. Go play on PC with Google Play Games.
Ron Millett built a device that illustrates the principles he believes could be used to build a time machine. But he was one of the people that came up with one of the first people to come up with the realization or the revelation that once that time machine was invented,
his dad died in
from
Vietnam.
then, yeah. But it is really like a comic book superhero sort of origin story, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a great origin story.
Yeah. So this guy has become obsessed and has been working on it for decades. And they think they have a working model of, like at least a theoretical model of a time machine, but it just requires like the power of the sun. It requires immense power. And I think there's a guy from, the early 19th century, Kurt Gödel. He wasn't from the early 19th century, early 20th century. And he had a working model of a time machine too, but it involved something as large as like the solar system. Like you needed a machine the size of a solar system or something crazy. Yeah. Kurt Gödel in 1949 found a solution to the field equations of general relativity which described a space-time with some unusual properties. This Gödel universe permitted closed time-like curves, hence a kind of time travel, and it did not admit decomposition into the successive moments of time. Yeah, so he had...
I didn't understand any of that sentence. I mean, like that. I'm so like
Oh
so
my
stupid
fucking
that if
goodness,
I
I hate this
if I start
game.
to realize what that means, it gives me a panic attack. Like as you talk
Shut
about,
up,
there's no
just do
anything
anything.
ever anywhere, or when you just
Why
mentioned the
the fuck
universe,
open?
and I realize there is something really up there. Like
oh
there's,
yeah,
like
it's not
there's-
just up there.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's all around you
That I don't
for
like.
infinity.
That fucking gives me a panic attack
It'll-
immediately.
Yeah, it'll give you a panic attack if you really do stop and give it time and think about it. It's an amazing thing.
Do you think that they'll be able to take, like, I don't know if we have to go to computer modeling, but take the data of, like, this video, for instance, where these kids are in 1901,
Yeah, this
and
is
put that
children
into,
staring
like,
at the
virtual
camera.
reality, where you could then insert yourself
Yeah.
to be in there? You can't affect anything, but you could at least experience and hear what it's like.
Yeah, but you probably get an interpretation of it. Like, say if they wanted to do that today and they had this unbelievable ability to create people and images and places, and they decided to show you the construction of the pyramids, they would just be guessing.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
The sexiest astrophysicist alive, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah! Are there aliens and are they going to probe us?
How big is your ego that you think?
We're so vulnerable. And that's one of the
I've been doing some work on black holes recently, which I hadn't started last time I saw you, actually. So I got interested in it. And the amount of the progress that's been made in trying to understand how they work. And a question that was posed by Stephen Hawking a long time ago, really 1970s, early 1980s, which is what happens to stuff that falls in. The simplest question you could possibly ask.
Right.
There's progress being made on that now, which I think is profound and exciting.
How is the progress being made? Like, how do we study a black hole?
I mean, it's mainly theoretical, although we have now got photographs of them. So we have two photographs, which are radio telescope photographs.
Right.
One of the one in the center of our galaxy, which is a little one. It's called Sagittarius A star. It's a little supermassive black hole. So it's about 6 million times the mass of the sun, which makes it a little supermassive. And then there's another one, the first photo that was taken. It's a collaboration called Event Horizon, and they took a photo of one in the galaxy M87. 55 million light years away. That thing is around 6 billion times the mass of the sun. I mean, imagine that, 6,000 million times more massive than our sun.
Is that the largest black hole we've ever discovered?
No, there are bigger ones than that, but that's that's the scale of them. It's a big-ish one, that. But if you think about it, I mean, so there's a number, it's called the the Schwarzschild radius of the thing. So if you took our sun, which you can fit 1 million Earths inside, and collapsed it down to make a black hole, it would form a black hole when it shrunk within a radius of 3 kilometers, about 2 miles. So you've got to take this thing, which is what I have to convert from kilometers to miles, don't I? But it's about
That's okay. Just say kilometers.
700,000 kilometers. So it's about 500,000 miles radius or something like that. The sun. So you squash it down till it's about 2 miles, and then that would form a black hole.
Wow.
The 6 billion times the mass of the sun means you multiply that by 6 billion. So these things, the so-called Schwarzschild radius is, I don't know, larger than our solar system, basically.
Oh
this
my
thing
God.
that sits in a galaxy. So we've got these 2 photographs.
Larger than our solar system.
Yeah, the event. Right. So it's a big structure.
Oh.
That's a Chandra X-ray image of. There it is. That's it. So the that one, there. That's the M87 black hole. So what you're seeing there is the emission from the material that's swirling around it. It's called the accretion disk. So you have material that's orbiting very fast, emitting a lot of radiation, and that's what you see. It's a flat disk, by the way. So you think Saturn's rings. So this material is very flat. But what you're seeing in that photograph is the light rays being bent around the black hole from that flat disk. So that was a prediction from Einstein's theory, basically. He published it in 1915. And you can predict that that's what one should look like. And then just about, what was that, 4 years ago now, maybe 5 years ago, for the first time in history, we get an image of one, and it looks like the prediction. So it's a remarkable thing.
How phenomenal is that?
Yeah. So we've had those 2 photographs. The other thing we've had is so-called gravitational wave detections. So these are colliding black holes, and they collide and merge together. And obviously that's quite a violent event in the universe. And so that event, that process ripples space-time. So it sends ripples out in the fabric of the universe, space and time. And actually Kip Thorne is I've spoken to him several times. He's one of the greats, right? Won the Nobel Prize for this. And he calls it a storm in time. So you get a time storm. So really, we're to think, as we speak now, there will be these very tiny ripples from violent cosmic events passing through this room. And they're changing the rate that time passes. So that as they go through. And we can detect that now. So we have detectors that can pick that up. And so we've seen those collisions as well.
So these collisions, how far away?
Oh, millions of light years away.
And they're affecting what's happening in this room right now?
Yeah, to a tiny extent. So there's an experiment called LIGO, which is the, what it stands for, something like gravitational interferometer. I can't remember exactly what but so basically it's laser beams. And there's one in Washington State, north of Seattle, and one in Louisiana. And they're kind of laser beams, 4 kilometer long laser beams at right angles. And they can detect these very tiny shifts in the, effectively, you could say, the length of the laser beam. It's a bit more fiddly and complicated, but it essentially measures the distortion in space-time caused by these ripples. And it's way less than the diameter of an atomic nucleus, by the way, way less. These little sort of...
Oh, my God.
And so we've observed many of those collisions. There it is. There's LIGO. Wow. So it's just basically 2 laser beams but with these ultra high precision thing. And so we've got data now of the collision of black holes and those event horizon pictures with radio telescopes. So that's part of it. But the main bit has been theoretical advances in understanding exactly... in a sense, it was what's wrong with Stephen Hawking's calculation, which is a weird thing to say sometimes because people think Stephen Hawking surely didn't get his math wrong. But he did, actually, in his calculation. So what he calculated back in 1973, 1974, is that a black hole, so we picture this thing from which nothing can escape, even light. So when you go in, you're gone, basically. What he calculated is that even though these things are just a distortion in space and time, that's the description of them. So it's almost as if there's nothing there apart from a distortion in space and time. He calculated that they glow, so they have a temperature. So they emit radiation. It's called Hawking radiation. And so important was that discovery.
Confidence is not a mindset. It's an achievement. In the GMC Sierra HD AT.
If you go to Westminster Abbey in London, look on the floor of the Abbey on his memorial stone, and he's in there next to Newton and Shakespeare and all these people, and he's there. And chiseled in stone on the floor of Westminster Abbey is his equation for the temperature of a black hole. So it was this tremendously important discovery. So he discovers these things glow, and he calculates how they glow. A very low temperature, but they emit things, which means that they shrink because they're emitting stuff, and so they're shrinking. So that means they have a lifetime. So first of all, one day they'll be gone. So that means that you have to address this question of what happened to all the stuff that fell in. And his calculation said that there's no record at all of anything that fell in all this radiation that's come off the black hole. So it's purely information-less radiation. So what that means is that black holes destroy information, according to that calculation. And that's a big deal because nowhere else in all of physics does anything erase information from the universe. So it's really true that if I got this notepad and pen, right, and I wrote some things on it, and then I set fire to this, even just incinerated it, put it in a nuclear explosion, whatever. In principle, according to all the laws of nature that we know, if you collected everything that came off, all the radiation, all the bits of ashes and things, and you could just measure it all, then just in principle, the idea is you could reconstruct the information. So it all gets scrambled up and thrown out into, and so in practice you can't do it, but just in principle, the laws of nature say that information is not destroyed, it's just scrambled up in a way that you can't reconstruct, right? But this calculation that Stephen did said there is no information in that radiation at all. Zero, just nothing. So it seemed that uniquely in the universe, black holes erase information.
When you say there's no information, like how are you measuring whether or not there's information in it?
So really in bits. I mean, the idea is, and I should say it's very much in principle this, so no one thinks in practice you could reconstruct what I wrote down on this if you set fire to it. But in principle...
Well, maybe sometime in the future, maybe a million years from now.
In principle, you could just collect everything. Well, then somewhere in that all that radiation and ashes and light that's come off the thing is the information. It's there. So you could reconstruct the book or what I wrote on this page in principle. But the thing about Stephen's calculation was that even in principle, it said there is no information. And by the way, it's kind of easy to see why, actually, because this radiation, this Hawking radiation that comes off the black hole, it's coming from the horizon of the black hole. So I should say what the horizon is, maybe. So it's, if you remember I said that the sun, if you squashed it down within 3 kilometers of radius, you'd get this kind of distortion in space and time, from which if you went in across this region 3 kilometers, you went inside it, you couldn't get out. So that's called the event horizon. So you wouldn't notice if you fell through the horizon of the black hole in the Milky Way galaxy. If you went into that one, we could be falling through that horizon now in this room, and we wouldn't notice anything, except that we couldn't get out again. And ultimately, in a few hours, in that case, time would end for us. So we just you go to the end of time. We could talk about that. There's a picture of that. Maybe I should talk about that. This is getting quite complicated already, isn't it? We didn't start in a relaxing way, did we? I don't know.
No need to. No need to. Let's get right into it. So we wouldn't notice.
Not for the big black holes. So these supermassive black holes, we could fall across this horizon. It's just like being in empty space for us. So we'd be talking now when we could have been talking on the outside of the horizon, and by the time I finished the sentence we could be on the inside of the horizon, inside the black hole. And according to Einstein's theory, at least, which is the theory that predicted them initially, we could just do that. We could just go in and we wouldn't notice for a bit. The thing we would notice ultimately is you go inexorably, nothing you can do, you go to this thing called the singularity once you've crossed the horizon, and you are going to that thing. And then the question arises, what is that thing? And one answer is we don't know, but in Einstein's theory it's the end of time. So one way of picturing what's happened here is so distorted is space and time by the collapse of a star or the collapse of loads of stuff to make these big supermassive black holes. We don't quite know how they form actually, but it's collapsing stuff. So it distorts space and time so much that in a real sense they kind of flip over. They get mixed up. And so this singularity, which you might have thought of as the point to which this thing collapsed, this infinitely dense point, you might think, but actually more correctly to be seen as the end of time, because everything's got mixed up. So you go to the end of time, and it's just like saying, why can't I escape that thing? It's like, why can't we escape tomorrow? Right, so we are going to tomorrow.
Right.
And if I said to you, let's run away from tomorrow, you'd go, I can't run away from tomorrow.
So is it the end of time because all information is being erased, so there's nothing?
Yeah, I mean,
is that the idea?
If you draw the thing, you can draw a map of it, and it just literally time ends, just purely in Einstein's theory. This is 1915. This theory of general relativity. You just get a line there, a line that says there's no future beyond this line. It just stops.
Okay.
So, I mean, admittedly,